So in today's webinar, we're looking at an example from Cleveland Police who've been using the opportunity to use the commonly shared Microsoft blueprints and technologies to tackle one of those common issues across forces which impact on the core operational capabilities of frontline police officers and staff. Yes, we're talking about the dreaded vehicle logbook. And those colleagues who've ever been involved in policing and have the permit to drive any police vehicle will be familiar with picking up the keys to a shiny or sometimes not so shiny police vehicle, ready to get onto the task or job to find either a problem with the vehicle or the scruffy paper-based mileage log hasn't been updated and some miles missing and some usage missing. And then there's the huge and thankless task of keeping those vehicles maintained, available, and importantly, safe to use by officers and staff across the various forces bases in force, plus the fleet team who need to be able to plan repairs, maintenance, MOTs, and of course the replacements and rotation of the vehicles to make sure we're getting the best value out of them. I'd like to introduce Rachel Robinson, who's the Business Engagement Manager from PDS, who's been doing a lot of work to support this. So Rachel, perhaps you could explain where we're at with this.
Thank you, Dave. Hello all. Before we hand over to Mark and Chris there from Cleveland, I just wanted to provide you with a little bit of context, a bit of background into the work that's been happening here in relation to vehicle checks. So over the past 12 to 15 months or so, myself and colleague Gemma Dent have coordinated and facilitated a national working group, essentially, where we have focused on vehicle checks. We've discussed the requirements that forces want in this space, the scope, and raised awareness of some of the activity that forces are already doing in this space. So we've had some really positive demonstrations from the likes of Beds, Cams and Hearts. And as you will see just very shortly, the demonstration from Cleveland here. We've been joined from colleagues, like I say, from up and down the country, and really nicely we've had input and advice from the National Association of Police Fleet Managers as well, who have been keen to support this activity and understand what is happening out there and how they can drive some of this to push standards and how we can all do this better together. As you will see, Cleveland have been really keen and they've utilised the tools and functionality with the 365 stack. And the hope going further down the track is this will become available to you all in the solutions catalogue. It is something that I would encourage you to kind of take a look at. There are some very, very positive conversations happening at the minute with other forces that are keen to support Cleveland in the kind of final stages of testing, the packaging, the writing of the user guides and so on. So there's lots happening in this space, and I'm just really pleased. I'm really excited about giving you this opportunity today, Cleveland, to show everybody else what you've been up to. So without further ado, Dave, I'm not sure if I'm coming back to you, if we're going straight to the Cleveland team, but...
So yeah, let me introduce Mark and Chris from Cleveland. They're going to talk us through the solution they've developed and what's working in force. So Mark, perhaps if you could start us off, could you explain the scope and aims of the project?
Of course I can. Thanks, David. Cleveland Police recognised in 2022 that they needed to improve the administration and action of the vehicle fleet, basically. The key areas were improving the process for vehicle checks and how they were audited, improving the process around service schedules and off-road notifications for officers and staff using the cars, using the use of automation to improve how information was passed and shared, so it wasn't getting put into Excel sheets and things like that, and we were having a lot of information duplication. We wanted to alleviate the time that the fleet staff were spending having to chase these cars for services and MOTs and things like that, and then be able to flag the vehicles when they're due for these services and MOTs. We wanted to improve the sort of the options for police officers as well to report faults and report issues, because it was a paper-based form. Everything was paper-based. It was slow. Things were sort of taking a long period of time. And then create a digital vehicle database effectively to support all of our vehicles. The aims what we were given, if Chris, if you can go on to the aim slide for me, please.
Can everyone see my screen? Yeah.
There we go. If we go on to the aims, thank you very much. So what we wanted to create was a dashboard desktop, which would be there for the fleet administrators to use. That could deal with the sort of day-to-day vehicle information, where the vehicles were, if they were in garages, provide updates, all that kind of stuff. That information to be shared with all police officers and staff through that process. Simplify the form structure, so the sort of three main forms is the mileage, the damage reporting, and the vehicle checks. Make it easier for the supervisors to review that information sort of quickly and easily in the comfort of Teams and the sort of the Microsoft 365 scope, and a single digital solution which kind of covers all of those bases. And also we were looking at making the most of the vehicles that we've got. Cleveland has around 1,500 vehicles, so it's a reasonably small fleet, I believe, from speaking to other forces. So we just wanted to make sure that we're sort of getting the most out of those vehicles. And Chris, if you can go on the next slide, please, mate. So this is the kind of first glance of the three apps that we've developed. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the mobile app, which the police officers use on their devices. The middle screen is the fleet management whiteboard, and the vehicle supervision dashboard on the right-hand side. And if Chris, if you can go on the next slide, I can go into a bit more detail on the digital logbook mobile app. So the mobile app is designed to be as user-friendly as possible. Really simple button displays. You can see there the officers can pick sort of what kind of vehicles they're in, sort of broke down into police cars, police vans, unmarked vehicles, and then the specialist vehicles such as the armed response unit, dog unit, roads policing. That then takes them to a sort of search list where they can see all the vehicles. They can see if they're available or occupied, if there's any kind of damage reports or any information that they need to know, and who that vehicle is attached to and where it is. They simply click on that and it takes them to the mileage screen, which is how we do the sort of the log in, log out. Enter whatever mileage is on the vehicle, and then they've kind of taken ownership at that point. The other two screens you can see there are the damage report form. So you can see it's just a really simple form that they have to fill in. It picks up the account details off the mobile device using the Azure AD directory to find out who the user is, and then the sort of checks screen, the vehicle checks, which are set to be checked every week as like a formal check, but they should be checking it every day. It's a really simple, straightforward ticky box option. If any of those boxes aren't ticked, they have to report a damage to fleet, and that's all recorded for auditing purposes. Chris, if you can go on the next slide for me, please. So yeah, just available to all the staff and the officers via Teams, mobile and desktop, simple and intuitive to use. More information for all the officers as they're selecting what vehicles to use, and they can see if it's something like the blues are out, but you're not blue light trained, then that might not affect you. It's just so there's more sort of information there, and everything's data collected through Power Automate and the Azure AD systems. If you can go on the next slide for me, please, Chris. The management dashboard is designed to help the fleet administrators sort of do their day-to-day work on the vehicles. So it gives them a full overview of all the vehicles, and then this screen that you can see in front of you is the garages and how the garages look. It's basically just to show how many vehicles we've got in each garage. They can click on any of those options and be able to see that vehicle specifically and see more information. This has got full auditing capabilities and the ability to archive vehicles once they come off the road and once we stop using them. This takes all the data from all over the apps and puts it into one document in one place. And it's basically a single location where they can come in and manage the day-to-day tasks. And then Chris, if you go on the next slide, I can show you a few more of the screens. You can see there's just basically a search function for each vehicle, so they can go and update it. There's an area where they can look at damage reports and see who's put them in, with all the Azure data behind to show them who's actually putting the records in, and also the vehicle check screen where they can actually look at past vehicle checks of the vehicles, and if there's any sort of related damage reports or anything, it's all interlinked to show those on the screen as well. And then Chris, if you can go on the next screen. This is the vehicle supervision dashboard. It's basically a place for your supervisors to review their fleet. It's been designed to be super straightforward to read, give as much information as you can to your supervisors so they can make those tactical decisions on how we use the vehicles, who's using the vehicles and where we're using the vehicles. You've got sort of 4 boxes, so green is perfectly great vehicles, yellow is vehicles that we're still using but there might be some issue with them but we're aware of it, and red is that those vehicles are off the road or in repair or anything like that. And then the side column, which hasn't got any vehicles on the screenshot shown, is vehicles that need to be collected and dropped off. So it's a way for sergeants to really clearly see what's going on with their vehicles and be able to look at the resilience. If you go on the next slide, please. We also have a sort of a data collection area which shows the current status of your vehicle. So there you've just got active, marked and unmarked vehicles, how many damage reports we've received in the last 30 days, how many mileage reports we've had in the last 30 days, and then 2 sections to show the most used vehicles and the least used vehicles. This just gives an option for supervisors to request if there's certain vehicles that aren't being used, they can ask for those vehicles to be moved or relocated to sort of better serve the purpose. The idea of this is that it's just a straight view, simple screen for the sergeants to see where their vehicles are at and what's going on with them. If you go on the next slide. If you click on any of the vehicles in this display, it brings up all the information. So there they can see what the vehicle is, where it is, any updates from fleet are shown, when the last check was done, who did that check, when the next one's due. And then the 2 buttons at the bottom are options for the supervisors to get in touch with fleet. This was to remove the need for emails back and forth, phone calls back and forth, which were taking up a lot of fleet administrators' time. So if we go on the next slide, I can show you what the vehicle checklist looks like. So basically they can see who's done vehicle checks, when they've done them, what they've marked as operational or damaged. And then if it's a full check, it's basically all of them are correct. There's no need for a related damage report. But if one of those was unchecked, it will show whether there is a damage report or isn't a damage report attached to that, just to give them an idea that yes, someone has found that the tyres were worn out, and yes, they have reported to fleet, and fleet have the facility then to sort of search those vehicle checks and get that damage report and make sure that it's all the information is correct. If you go on the next slide, it will show you the contact and fleet button. So this is basically a really simple form, drop down box, select what you need to know. Is it an update on a vehicle? Is it saying that you've collected a vehicle from a garage or anything like that? Add a quick comment. It picks up the user who's requested it. That goes straight into Fleet's Teams group, and anyone can reply to that in there. So a question that's come in the chat there from Matt Whaley. To get the officers to use it, it's just about getting that buy-in really from the officers, that we are simplifying the process for them, getting your supervisors to buy in as well. We've had our apps out on pilot in one of our districts, Hartlepool. The chief inspector and the superintendent at Hartlepool have been absolutely brilliant, absolutely amazing to support that and make sure that officers are filling in this data. Obviously with the recorders in the vehicles, you know, that's a massive benefit that some forces have, where they can sort of review that, make sure people are signing in, and obviously there can be changes with telematics to the app if you don't need to collect mileage through the app, if it's getting done through telematics.
Brilliant. And Mark, you can't beat a bit of supervision buy-in on this, can you, to make this happen?
No, it's been absolutely fantastic. You do need that. You need that support at the end of the day. As much as myself and Chris are both police officers, getting a police officer with a crown on the shoulder definitely helps to get people involved in the app and buy into it.
Yeah.
We have had that buy-in from the police officers because of the fact that they're seeing the benefits. Apologies. They're seeing the benefits of being able to know more information about their vehicles and have more vehicles available.
Yeah, absolutely. So, please keep your questions coming into the chat. If you've got any more questions or comments and want to know more about this, please do. But there's a couple more slides you wanted to share with us, isn't there, Mark?
Yep. So if you go to the next slide, this is how the information comes to fleet. So the officers report it, an automated flow brings it through, puts it into an adaptive card in Teams. This is an actionable card that the fleet administrators can fill in, give their update, give their feedback, view any photos that the officers have shared from the app. The app has a built-in camera for damage reporting, so they can review that and make sort of a more informed decision. That was always another problem with the paper copies. There wasn't that facility to use things like mobile phones to share photos, so that's massively helpful.
And for those people, so while you grab a drink or please, so adaptive cards are a really helpful way because you don't need to go to the solution to get the information. An adaptive card is a really good way where it perhaps notifies into Teams when something's happened. It actually puts the information into the hands of the people that need it immediately. And where you've got those actionable adaptive cards, there's something we've experimented with. It actually then updates the data in the back end without having to go to another system to update it. So it's one of the tools that's got a huge amount of capability where you don't actually need to go to a tool to action something that's going on. So it is something for people to consider. Mark, is that a good place to explain that on that?
Yeah, everything that David's saying, we found with the adaptive cards because it's keeping it within Teams. Our fleet team are using Teams sort of daily to manage this process. Another question that's come in the chat is there a maximum number of vehicles for the app? Not that we're kind of aware of. Obviously, you've got your top limit with delegation and things like that of based on your app. It can be it's based at 500 and it can be put up to 2,000. We've used systems within the app to avoid delegation, so we haven't hit that limit, but it might be something where Dataverse comes into more power for bigger forces.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do the colleagues think? I think that's the most important thing. What do our frontline colleagues think of the tools?
Yep. So through the pilot, we've had our colleagues feeding back to us. A lot of them were using the apps for doing the mileage, doing the damage reports. They gave it an overall rating of 4 out of 5, which is pretty good. They were all trained just with 2 videos, 2 sort of 6-minute long videos, which explained how to use the app. A lot of them fed back that was enough. They didn't need any more training because it was straightforward to use. A few requests they made were to have the option to sign out of vehicles, which we've now included, the occupied and available statuses, to see what vehicles are available, QR codes in vehicles, which we have trialled, which we are looking. We did see the 4 vehicles that had those QR codes were getting more people filling those vehicles in. So we're definitely going to roll that out in a bigger capacity when we get to our main rollout. A tyre pressure aid memoir, which we've put in the app, which basically just tells them what tyre pressures the vehicle should have. The camera within the app, some rules around the mileage, so they can't put in like 100,000 more than what's needed and things like that. And then the supervisors asked to be able to see who was in the cars, the vehicle checks auditing, which we've included, and the icons. So there's a few icons which are like new. If a vehicle hasn't been checked in 7 days, and the available and occupied icons, they were all added as well. So yeah, it was really good feedback from our colleagues, and then our fleet colleagues as well. They also gave the feedback that it's really simplified their sort of day-to-day work, made it a lot easier. Made it easier for officers to report the faults, meaning that they can be dealt with quicker. And if it's something as simple as a bulb change or anything like that, it can be dealt with as quickly as needed, so vehicles aren't needing to be off the road for no reason. They've been able to make more informed decision making around where vehicles should be, and the officers feel like they've had more contact with fleet admin, and they have sort of mentioned how much better it is than the old system.
That's brilliant, and we are getting lots of questions coming in, and I'll start putting some of them to you and Chris, and whichever one of you thinks is the best one to come in on this one. So one of the questions in here is, how do you check the mileage is correct, and can you upload it into your fleet management system, the bespoke fleet management system?
So obviously we've got the rules which help with the sort of correction of data, make sure that's all right. We also have the fuel cards, so the mileage is generally dip sampled of are the fuel cards matching what the app's saying, and then obviously as the vehicles come in and out to fleet, they can check that as well. So that's sort of how we keep an eye on whether the mileages are correct. Our fleet staff are quite good at managing as well to see if there is any issues, and also within the app, as part of the damage report, officers can report if there's a mileage discrepancy. So if you know, all of a sudden someone puts in a 50,000 extra miles or whatever, people can report it, and that has been happening as well, where we did have someone who had a 29,000 mile car that had 290,000. This was before the rules were put in, and within half a day, there was about 6 or 7 reports saying there's a discrepancy on this vehicle and needs sorting. So it was managed really quickly and dealt with really fast.
And that is the beauty of the in-house Power App development. When you identify a problem, you can quickly build a rule around it to stop those sort of things happening. Another important question here, and does this replace the bespoke, perhaps fleet management databases or tools you're using, or work alongside it to give enhanced information?
For our fleet team, they're still using a bespoke fleet management system for the garages and things like that. But this runs alongside it to sort of do the day-to-day, you know, the information the officers need to know, rather than all the extra stuff that the garages and the sort of fleet team need to know.
Yeah, and I suppose, is it the fleet team who work out which vehicles are allocated where and manage that database?
Yeah, it is. So it's our fleet team are kind of in charge of that. Obviously, supervisors can come in and request to get a certain vehicle, or they need an extra police car or whatever it is. But it's the fleet admin team who deal with all that.
Just conscious of time, and one of the questions in here: did the mobile app require specialist developers, or was it quite straightforward to build from the 365 tools?
The app was completely built by myself. I have no formal qualifications in Power Apps or anything like that. This was I was brought to this project in 2022, and it's basically a lot of self-driven, self-taught work. So it's just 365's made it very easy to develop that. And
I'll preempt the question that's bound to come in: no premium connectors?
There is no premium connectors at all. Obviously, if it was a bigger force, you would need the possibly the use of Dataverse rather than a SharePoint. This is all just hosted on SharePoint.
And I think that's the simplicity of it. The fact that you're from the experience, use the tools, you know how it is to fill in the details. You've been able to design it with the user in mind for both sides, and that's the beauty of the tools that we've been doing.
Yep, definitely.
So in terms of next steps, I know Rachel was talking about how we're going to move it. How far out have you rolled this across Cleveland now, and what's the plans in the immediate future for it?
So it's been used by 150 police officers at the moment, and they're continuing to use it. We have started the plan for the bigger rollout. Cleveland's separated into 5 sort of districts. So the second district is going to be the end of next month, and sort of slowly extending that field out until over the next sort of 3 months. We've had all sign off from Cleveland to continue the project. We've moved the app into its own environment, into like a live environment, with using a service account to run all the floors and everything else. It's just a case of getting out to our 5 districts and getting them using the app. So yeah, it was just what happened in week 1 of the app going into live was every single scratch, ding and bang, and every single time someone left a crisp packet in a car, it was getting reported to fleet. So it's just about managing that use of the app over a spread out section, rather than just giving it to everyone and fleet being absolutely overwhelmed.
Absolutely, and it's when it becomes normalised business, isn't it? But as you did say, a couple of 6-minute videos and people have been able to pick it up because of the technology that you're using. Thanks, Mark and Chris, for going in the background. Whilst anybody else puts any more questions into the chat, we do really value your feedback on our Wednesday webinars. The QR code will be on screen in a second and the link in the chat. If you do have something you'd like to share with us in one of the Wednesday webinars with other forces, whether it's 365 or other technologies that are commonly used around policing, please do get in touch with us, scan the QR code and get in touch. And whilst you've got your phones out, keep your phones out ready to scan another QR code here. The Police Digital Summit is less than 6 months away, which is a very daunting prospect for me as trying to organise the event that we're already less than 6 months to go. But we've already got to over 250 people from policing and the police tech industry, or pre-registered interesting to go. We're getting our sponsors and exhibitors lined up as we speak. If you want to be involved in this in September, please scan the QR code, register yourself in to get yourself your details, go into that. And of course, if you've got more interest or you've got something to share, the business engagement team are your first point of contact into PDS or the PDS website to contact us. But each force has a dedicated person who works with that force to help them leverage those supports. And if you're struggling in force, reach out to our business engagement manager who will absolutely help you to manage things. There's, of course, if you need to get in touch with us, again, go to the website and guess what? We're using Teams, adaptive cards, all those things to use these solutions. I do have a couple more questions to come back to, but here's just a reminder of the events that are coming up and what we're going on. We are going to take a little break over the Easter break from live webinars because we know people take leave and it becomes a bit more of a challenge to catch up, and we will get them. But a couple of last questions. We've got one here. Why did you go down this route rather than develop the existing fleet management system to have this capacity, Mark?
So with digital services, we're here to try and get the most of the tools we have. So obviously 365 is something that Cleveland's used for quite a while now. We're trying to get the funding for a full telematics system in the vehicles. So obviously the funding for this app was limited. So we use E5 licenses across the force. It made sense to go down this route to use the most of the tools we've already got with the Sport PDS as well.
And would you say, given that it's only taken 2 6-minute videos to get the users on board, that perhaps using the existing infrastructure where people are familiar is an advantage in this case?
Oh yeah, with myself and Chris have been going out doing Teams masterclasses and everything else to show the officers what these tools can do, and it's definitely been a positive experience doing that and using those tools and getting people onto Teams a bit more and give them a bit more functionality.
Absolutely, because the skills using this app, it can be transferred to any of the other apps that we develop at the end of the day. It just we all become more and more familiar with the tools that we're using, the better. And of course, that's going to save us some money as well, potentially in shorter time to deploy and solve these things. So absolutely the place for all systems, but it's a matter of balancing across the board. I want to thank Mark, I want to thank Chris, Rachel and Gemma in the background with Esther to keep things going. Mike's remotely working at the moment, just directing and putting the cameras up, because it is a big team effort putting these webinars on. We will get this edited, as all our webinars are available to replay, so please do head over to the PDS YouTube channel, subscribe, even click the little bell icon, just like you see on all the YouTube videos. You'll get an update when new videos are about. We do have a slight backlog at the moment in the editing and captioning. Just take a little bit of time to make sure the captions are correct, but we'll get those up and you'll be able to replay these and then share them in Force. And one thing that people don't realize, you can actually embed these onto your Force intranet if it's of use to you, so please share on. Once again, thanks to everybody who's joined us today, and Mark and Chris for sharing that fantastic piece of work. Hope you can see us on our next webinars after Easter. Thanks for joining us.